Bullies humiliated the black boy. Big mistake. They didn't know he was the underground chess prodigy. "Hey, Bobby Fischer, where's your chessboard?" yelled Kendra Davies, captain of the cheerleading squad, as she pushed Jamal right against the lockers in the hallway of Crestwood High. The metallic clang echoed through the crowded hallway, and more than 50 students stopped to watch the spectacle. Jamal was only 17, and never imagined that his first day at his new school would end up being free entertainment during lunch. He had transferred from a school in a quiet suburban town after his father got a better job in the city. He already knew it would be different there, but he didn't expect it to be this brutal. "Check it out, guys," Kendra continued, turning to her audience. "Looks like someone got lost on their way out of the boonies." Her friends laughed loudly. The kind of forced laughter that happens when teenagers want to impress the leader of the pack. What they didn't know was that Jamal was counting. 1, 2, 3 deep breaths. A technique he had learned 5 years ago when he started competitive chess to deal with the overwhelming anxiety he felt after his mother's sudden passing. 4, 5, 6. His eyes remained fixed on the floor, but not out of fear or shame. "What? You don't know how to speak English?" taunted Bryce Sterling, the most popular boy in school, recording everything on his cell phone. "Or do you only know how to speak farm?" Jamal slowly raised his head. His eyes met Kendra's, and for a second something passed between them. She blinked first, confused by the absolute calm in his gaze. It was like looking into a still pond, serene on the surface, but with a powerful, unseen depth. "Excuse me," Jamal said softly, his voice carrying a subtle southern drawl he had worked years to soften. "Were you talking to me?" The crowd laughed again, thinking they had broken his spirit. But Ava Lynn, a quiet white girl who always ate lunch alone, noticed something different. Jamal's posture wasn't submissive. It was that of someone who was assessing, calculating, waiting. Kendra moved closer, her hot breath on his face. "Listen here, country boy. Here's how it works. People like you keep quiet, keep your head down, and don't cause any trouble. Got it?" "People like me," Jamal repeated, savoring each word. A small smile touched his lips, but didn't reach his eyes. "What kind of person do you think I am, Kendra?" The use of her name surprised her. How did he know? They had never been introduced. In fact, how did he manage to look so controlled? "The kind that we'll learn to respect," she replied, pushing him again. This time, Jamal moved with the push instead of resisting. A movement so smooth it seemed almost like a dance. Kendra stumbled slightly, surprised by his lack of resistance. A quick flashback crossed Jamal's mind. Coach Reynolds, 3 months ago at the Mind Games Chess Club. "Jamal, you have the potential to be special. Not just technically, but here." He tapped his temple. "You play with your mind, but also with your intuition. That will take you far." Bryce stopped recording for a second. "Guys, he's being weird. Like, why isn't he freaking out?" "Maybe he's simple," suggested Chloe Vance, Kendra's best friend. "I mean, look where he came from." Jamal closed his eyes for a moment. 7, 8, 9 breaths. When he opened them, there was something new there. A cold determination that made some of the students instinctively step back. "Are you guys done?" he asked, adjusting the strap of his backpack. "Because I have AP Physics in 5 minutes. And contrary to what you might think, I actually care about my education." The simple, direct answer cut through the atmosphere like a knife. This wasn't the reaction they expected. Where were the tears? The desperation? The submission that would confirm all their assumptions about who he was supposed to be? Kendra felt her authority slipping through her fingers. "You're going to regret talking to me like that," she whispered low enough that only he could hear. "I make people's lives hell when they don't respect me." "I'm sure you do," Jamal replied, meeting her eyes again. "But the question is, have you ever met someone who came from nothing and built their own world?" The hallway grew eerily quiet. Even Bryce stopped filming, sensing that something had changed in the air. The other students began whispering among themselves, confused by the shift in the dynamic they had expected. Jamal started to walk away, but stopped and turned back. "Oh, Kendra." She stared at him, still processing what had just happened. "Thanks for the welcome. It was illuminating." As he walked down the hallway, his steps were measured, controlled, with a grace that vaguely resembled a grandmaster moving chess pieces. Ava Lynn watched, fascinated, noticing how Jamal kept his shoulders relaxed, but his fingers slightly curled. Not in fists, but in something more subtle, more prepared. What no one in that hallway knew was that Jamal Wright had just memorized every face, every name, every insult. And when he got home that night, he would do something he had been doing for 5 years. He would write everything down in a small, worn leather journal where he recorded every injustice, every challenge, every person who underestimated a 17-year-old black boy from the suburbs. The same journal where he had written Underground Chess Championship, 15 consecutive wins. Next tournament, Saturday. If this story of prejudice and underestimation caught your attention, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what happened the next day would prove that some people make the fatal mistake of confusing silence with weakness. The next morning, Jamal discovered that being publicly humiliated was just the beginning. Bryce's video had gone viral on the school's Instagram with the caption, "New kid learning the rules, #welcome to Crestwood, #know your place." 342 likes and comments that burned like acid. "He'll be back where he belongs real quick, LOL. He won't last a week. At least he's polite, right?" Jamal slid his finger across the screen, memorizing every username, every cruel comment. In his leather journal, he wrote meticulously, "Day 2, coordinated cyberbullying. Evidence. Screenshots attached." His handwriting remained perfectly controlled, as if he were taking notes in a history class. During break, Kendra and her gang took the table next to his in the cafeteria. "Hey guys, look at this," she said loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. "Our celebrity is here. How many views does your video have, Jamal? You must be proud of your fame." Ava Lynn, sitting alone 2 tables away, watched Jamal carefully. There was something about his posture, relaxed shoulders, controlled breathing, alert but calm eyes that didn't fit someone being bullied. He looked more like someone studying. "Kendra," Jamal said, without looking up from his physics textbook, "have you ever wondered why you need an audience to feel brave?" The silence that followed was deafening. Bryce Sterling almost choked on his soda. Chloe Vance stopped recording her own story on Snapchat. The question had hit something vulnerable that Kendra kept well hidden. "Watch your mouth," she growled, standing up. "You still don't understand how things work around here." Jamal finally looked at her, and for a second, Kendra saw something in his eyes that made her flinch involuntarily. It was the same look her strict father had when he was about to lose control. Cold, calculating, dangerous. "Actually," Jamal closed the book slowly, "I understand perfectly. You rule through fear because it's easier than earning genuine respect. You use social power as a crutch because alone, you're just an insecure kid who learned that hurting others hurts less than dealing with your own wounds." The cafeteria was completely silent now. Even the staff stopped cleaning tables. No one talked to Kendra Davies like that. No one dared. Chloe rose menacingly. "You'll regret this." "Possibly," Jamal admitted, tucking the book into his backpack. "But you'll regret something, too. The difference is, I chose my regret consciously." As he stood up to leave, Kendra grabbed him by the arm. It wasn't a gentle touch. It was possessive, controlling, the kind of gesture that left marks. Jamal looked at her hand on his arm, then into her eyes. "Take your hand off," he said softly. "Or what?" Kendra squeezed harder. A flashback crossed Jamal's mind. 3 years ago, at his mother's funeral. She had died of a sudden aneurysm at 38, leaving behind a husband overwhelmed by grief and a 14-year-old son who promised at her coffin that he would never be a victim of anything or anyone again. Coach Reynolds had shown up at the funeral, a kind, elderly white man with a gentle demeanor. "Your son is angry, Mr. Wright," he had said to Jamal's father. "Anger can destroy a person, or it can forge a champion. The choice is his." Jamal had chosen to be a champion. "Take your hand off me," he repeated, his voice still calm, but charged with something new. Kendra felt the muscles in his arm tense beneath her grip. It wasn't the tension of fear. It was the tension of someone preparing for action. The force with which he broke free surprised her. It wasn't violent, it was technical. A small, precise movement that broke her grip with apparent effort. Kendra looked down at her own hand, confused, as if it had simply evaporated. "How did you—" she began. "Self-defense," Jamal explained casually. "My dad signed me up after some kids tried to jump me on my way home from school. You understand how it is, right? Black kids from the suburbs need to know how to defend themselves." Chloe frowned. "Self-defense doesn't teach that." Jamal smiled for the first time since the day before. "You're right, basic self-defense doesn't teach that." He paused. "But I didn't say I did basic self-defense." Ava Lynn watched Jamal walk out of the cafeteria with movements that seemed almost fluid. Each step was precise, economical, as if he were always slightly in a defensive stance without it being obvious. That afternoon during gym class, Jamal had to wear the school uniform, standard shorts and a t-shirt that revealed something his normal clothes hid. His arms were subtly but unmistakably sculpted. Not exaggerated muscles, but the specific definition of someone who has been training with precision for years. "Man," whispered one girl on the basketball team to another. "Look at his arms. That guy works out." Kendra noticed too. During volleyball, she watched how Jamal moved. Always perfectly balanced, with reflexes too quick to be natural. A coordination that only comes with intensive training. When the ball came flying toward him, Jamal didn't just defend it. He controlled it with surgical precision, redirecting it exactly where he wanted it to go. The movement was so smooth, it looked like luck. But Kendra was beginning to suspect that nothing about Jamal Wright was luck. After class, she followed him to the lockers. "You're not who you seem to be, are you?" Jamal was changing clothes with efficient movements. "No one is who they seem to be, Kendra. That's the first rule of survival." "Survival?" She laughed nervously. "What kind of life did you have that you had to learn to survive?" Jamal stared at her for a long moment. "The kind of life where you learn that there are two kinds of people in the world. Those who protect the vulnerable and those who exploit them. And you learn to recognize the difference very quickly." "And which kind are you?" "I'm still deciding," Jamal replied, closing the locker. "But I know exactly which kind you are." That night, Jamal was at the Mind Games Chess Club, a quiet, almost hidden club above a dusty bookstore, where young prodigies from various backgrounds came to train away from the glare of elite society. Coach Reynolds was analyzing a complex endgame when Jamal told him about the events at school. "They're testing you," he said, his experienced eyes scanning the board. "They want to see how far they can push you before you break." "I won't break." "I know, but the question is, will you reveal yourself?" Coach Reynolds stopped working and looked him in the eyes. "Jamal, you have 15 consecutive wins on the underground circuit. You've outmaneuvered opponents twice your age, but your greatest power isn't your mental strength. It's that no one suspects what you're capable of." Jamal nodded, understanding the implication. "Keep the secret for now, but if they escalate beyond verbal intimidation—" Coach Reynolds didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. They both knew that Jamal had promised on his mother's grave that he would never be anyone's victim again. The next morning, Jamal found his locker covered in graffiti. "Go back to your farm," in crude black letters. Students walked by and took pictures, turning his humiliation into morning entertainment for the school. Kendra appeared beside him, feigning surprise. "Wow, that's too bad. Who did that?" Her friends laughed loudly, making it obvious who the culprits were. Jamal touched the black letters, feeling the paint still slightly damp. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "black is an interesting color. It symbolizes power, mystery, and an impending storm." "Really?" Kendra leaned closer. "To me, it just symbolizes that you're learning your lesson." Jamal turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The only lesson I'm learning is that some people confuse patience with weakness. And when they find out the difference," he paused, "well, it's usually too late for them." Each humiliation only fueled something inside him that his tormentors couldn't see. A cold, calculated determination being forged by the very injustice they tried to impose. What Kendra and her friends didn't know was that every insult, every shove, every moment of contempt was being carefully documented in a worn leather journal that would be the key to their own destruction. On Wednesday, Jamal arrived at school early and found Ava Lynn cleaning his vandalized locker with cleaning supplies she had brought from home. "You don't have to do that," Jamal said softly. But Ava shook her head. "I know what it's like to be different here. Kendra made my life hell in freshman year until I became invisible." Ava hesitated. "But you're not becoming invisible. You're doing something different." Jamal studied Ava's face. "What kind of different?" "Yesterday, when Kendra grabbed you and you broke free, my dad taught me some basic self-defense. That wasn't basic." For the first time in days, Jamal smiled genuinely. "Where is your family from?" "Korea. My father was a master Go player before he immigrated. He always said he could tell a strategist by the way they move their mind." Ava finished cleaning the locker. "You're a strategist, aren't you?" Jamal sized Ava up for a long moment. "Self-defense. My dad put me in classes when we moved here." "Classes where? Why do you want to know?" Ava showed him a small scar on her wrist. "Because Kendra has you marked as her top target. When she does that, things escalate. She doesn't stop until she breaks you completely." At that moment, Kendra appeared in the hallway with Bryce and Chloe. When she saw Ava standing next to Jamal, her face contorted. "Look, the quiet nerd made a new friend. How cute." Ava instinctively shrank back. But Jamal stepped forward, positioning himself between Kendra and Ava. The movement was subtle, but protective. "Kendra, shouldn't you be studying for your civics test on ethical leadership? The irony made some students snicker, and Kendra realized she was being mocked. Very funny, but civics won't protect you when I decide to teach you some more practical lessons. Practical lessons? Jamal repeated thoughtfully. Like what exactly? Bryce approached menacingly. Like not talking to girls who aren't on your level. Kendra smiled cruelly. His level is where people like you have always been, serving people like us, keeping quiet when real people are talking. The hallway fell silent. Jamal looked Kendra in the eye for a long moment. Real people. Tell me more about that. Not being intimidated by boys who think they're special. I see. And intimidation would be part of being a real person, too. Kendra was feeling cornered. I don't intimidate anyone. I just teach respect, like you did to Patrick O'Connell last year. The blood drained from Kendra's face. Patrick O'Connell had been severely bullied and had transferred schools after months of torment, an incident hushed up by Kendra's influential family. How did you... Kendra began. Patrick is thriving now, by the way, Jamal interjected. He transferred to a school where he can be himself. Ava looked at Jamal with new respect. He had done his research on Kendra. You don't know anything about Patrick, Kendra said, but his voice had lost its confidence. I know he suffered from severe depression after you posted those manipulated photos. I know he spent 4 months in therapy, and I know you all thought it was hilarious. Jamal took out his phone and showed screenshots of old Instagram posts of Bryce and Chloe laughing about Patty the crybaby. The internet never forgets, Kendra. Chloe tried to grab the phone, but Jamal tucked it away quickly. Where did you get this? Public posts. Anyone can see them, including parents, principals, and authorities interested in cyberbullying that led to a serious mental health crisis. Kendra was pale. You can't prove anything. I don't need to prove anything. I just need to document it. Jamal glanced at the crowd of recording phones. And it looks like everyone else is documenting it just fine. That afternoon in gym class, his school uniform revealed something his normal clothes had hidden. Jamal's arms were subtly sculpted, not overly muscular, but the specific definition of someone who has been training with purpose for years. During volleyball, when a ball came flying toward him, Jamal didn't just defend it. He controlled it with surgical precision. The movement was so smooth it looked like luck. But Kendra was beginning to suspect that nothing about Jamal Wright was luck. You're not who you seem to be, she said after class. No one is who they seem to be, Kendra. That's the first rule of survival. What kind of life did you have that you had to learn to survive? Jamal stared at her for a long moment. The kind where you learn that there are 2 kinds of people. Those who protect the vulnerable and those who exploit them. And which kind are you? I'm still deciding. But I know exactly which kind you are. That night, Jamal opened his laptop and sent a message to an address he had memorized. Evidence collected, witnesses lined up, ready for next phase. The reply came within minutes. Documentation approved. Proceed as planned. In his leather journal, he wrote, Day 5. Allie confirmed. Ava Lynn. Antagonist showing signs of desperation. Patrick O'Connell file, weapon loaded. Next phase, full exposure. What Kendra didn't know yet was that Jamal had secretly contacted other students she had tormented. The file he was building wasn't just about bullying. It was about a systematic pattern that was about to explode in a way that would destroy not only her reputation, but the entire structure that allowed people like her to thrive. Because Jamal Wright wasn't just a boy seeking personal justice. He was part of something bigger. And Kendra Davies had just become the perfect example of what happens when predators choose the wrong prey. As Jamal closed his laptop, a smile touched his lips. Not one of joy, but the cold satisfaction of someone who knows that all the pieces are finally in place. What no one suspected was that the real storm was just beginning. And when it arrived, it would be devastating in a way that no high school bully could ever imagine or prepare for. On Friday morning, Kendra arrived at school to find posters scattered throughout the hallways. Justice for Patrick O'Connell, the truth about bullying at Crestwood High. Below, QR codes directed to a website with screenshots, videos, and testimonials from dozens of students. How did he get this? Kendra muttered, scanning the code. The page revealed 3 years of documented systematic abuse, including photos of her and her friends laughing while Patrick cried in the bathroom moments before a severe anxiety attack. Chloe came running up, hysterical. "Kendra, my parents are going to kill me. The video is everywhere. Reddit, TikTok, Twitter." During break, Kendra burst into the library where Jamal was sitting quietly. "You ruined my life. My college scholarship is gone and Patrick's family is suing." Jamal looked at her with his usual calm. "You're worried about consequences. Patrick was 14 when you posted those fake profiles of him online, making fun of his interests. That was 2 years ago. It was just a joke." "A joke?" Jamal opened his laptop. "Let's see what Patrick thought." The screen showed a video that made Kendra recoil. It was Patrick O'Connell, now 19, in a professional studio. "My name is Patrick O'Connell. Kendra Davies and her friends turned my life into hell. When I heard he was doing the same thing to Jamal Wright, I wanted to help." Kendra was pale. Where did this come from? "Patrick majored in digital ethics and works in online safety," Jamal replied. "He contacted me 3 weeks ago, offering his help." The video continued. Jamal Wright isn't just a transfer student. He's an undefeated state champion with 15 consecutive wins on the underground chess circuit. But more importantly, he's never bowed down to bullies. Bryce tried to close the laptop, but Jamal stopped him with such a quick movement that he stumbled. "The most interesting part," Jamal said calmly, "is that I didn't have to lie about anything. You assumed I was weak because I'm black and new to school." Chloe was crying. "Our lives are over." "Your lives are over." Jamal stood up. "Patrick almost had his life literally ended. How many lives did you think you could destroy without consequences?" Kendra tried to regain control. "You can't prove I did anything wrong now." Jamal smiled coldly. "Kendra, do you really think I didn't document every second?" He opened a folder showing organized timestamps. Monday, psychological intimidation. Tuesday, coordinated cyberbullying. Wednesday, racial insensitivity. But here's the best part. You did all of this knowing I was recording because you thought a boy like me would never have the courage to fight back. You can't use that. It's illegal to record without consent. "Not in public areas of the school," a new voice said. Everyone turned to see Principal Miller with 2 men in suits and a prosecutor. "Miss Davies," the principal said formally, "you are suspended. The police want to ask you questions about the Patrick O'Connell case, and there is new evidence of systematic bullying." Kendra looked around desperately. "This is absurd. He set me up." "Yes," Jamal agreed simply. "I planned it. I documented every crime, contacted every victim, collected every piece of evidence you were too arrogant to hide. The difference is that I used the truth." The prosecutor approached. "Miss Davies, we have evidence of a pattern that constitutes criminal harassment, cyberbullying, and possibly hate crimes." Chloe sobbed. "Jamal, please, we can talk. We know we were terrible." Jamal looked at her with almost pity. Chloe, you had 3 years to choose change. You chose to escalate the cruelty. Some actions have permanent consequences. As Kendra was escorted away, she turned around one last time. You think you're better than us, but you're just a bully. Jamal met her eyes and replied clearly. The difference, Kendra, is that I use my strength to protect people who can't protect themselves. You used it to hurt those trying to survive. That doesn't make us the same. It makes us opposites. When the commotion died down, Ava approached. How did you know it would work? Jamal closed his laptop. People like Kendra always make the same mistake. They assume that physical strength or social status is all that matters. They never consider knowledge, patience, strategy, and the ability to turn pain into purpose. Coach Reynolds appeared, nodding approvingly. How do you feel? I don't feel joy. It's not revenge. It's making sure she can never do this to anyone else, and showing everyone that people like us don't have to accept being treated like less than human. In the silence that followed, something had fundamentally changed at Crestwood High. It wasn't just that Kendra had been removed. It was what Jamal had proven possible. When someone refuses to accept injustice and has the intelligence to fight back the right way. But while the students processed the radical transformation they had just witnessed, Jamal held one last secret. What had happened there wasn't just about school justice, but part of something much bigger that was about to change, not just a school, but an entire system that allowed predators like Kendra to thrive with impunity at the expense of the vulnerable. 6 months later, Jamal stood on stage in the Crestwood High Auditorium, holding the Student of the Year award, as the entire school gave him a standing ovation. His father cried with pride in the front row, watching his son be celebrated by the same community that had nearly destroyed him. This award isn't just mine, Jamal said into the microphone. It's for all the students who chose to protect each other instead of hurting each other. Ava Lynn, now president of the school's anti-bullying club, smiled from the audience. Patrick O'Connell had flown in especially for the ceremony, recording everything to show how a 17-year-old boy had changed an entire school. Kendra Davies was across town, completing 400 hours of community service. Expelled from Crestwood, rejected by colleges after the viral scandal, she worked at a local animal shelter. For the first time in years, she felt the genuine satisfaction of helping rather than hurting. Chloe Vance had lost her social media followers, her friends abandoning her when her reputation crumbled. Now she was in therapy, finally confronting the insecurities that had turned her into a cruel person. Crestwood High had become a national model for combating bullying. The anti-bullying program wasn't just posters. It was a real system where students like Jamal trained others to recognize and combat injustice. The best part, Jamal explained to a documentary about the school, wasn't destroying Kendra. It was showing that people like us never had to accept being treated like we were less than. The video of Jamal receiving his award had surpassed 5 million views, inspiring anti-bullying movements in schools across the country. At graduation, Jamal was chosen to be the valedictorian. Some of you know my story about perseverance and justice, but what I want you to remember is not how you punish those who hurt you. It's how you choose to use your strength to build something better. Kendra, who had been granted permission to attend as part of her rehabilitation, applauded with tears streaming down her face. Jamal, she whispered to herself, you saved me from becoming a monster forever. Jamal had learned the most important lesson. The best justice isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a world where people like them can't thrive by hurting the vulnerable. When you turn pain into purpose, you don't just win, you inspire a revolution. The boy, who was underestimated for being black and from a small town, had become living proof that some people are born to be leaders who show others how to refuse to accept the unacceptable.